Real Country 550 and 92.9 WAME Statesville.
Welcome to Racing Roots with Hamm.
If you don't know our host, David Hamm, he's a 25-year NASCAR veteran, engine builder, and jackman.
Live every Monday evening, we have a new guest.
From the racing world with their stories, their paths,
their racing
roots. Now here's our host, David Hamm.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to Racing Roots with Hamm on this beautiful, what is this, February day?
Yeah.
February the 20th already. Man, we are flying through this month.
Crazy.
Already into 2023 and such. We already had the Daytona 500 yesterday.
Good to be back.
Yeah.
Good to have it back. Yeah.
It is. It still feels weird, though. It feels like, is it race time already? You know, the Super Bowl came and went so fast. And then I guess it's because I went back to work.
Yeah, that's what done it. It's making time go by really fast.
Yeah.
For me, time went by really slow. I mean, it seemed like the off season was freaking long, man. It's like we stop in November, and then it's like there's nothing to do for 3 months, and now we got it back. So life is good. Daytona 500 was yesterday. Pretty good race. You said you watched it, right?
I did, yes. And that's, if you don't recognize that voice, that's the young Bryson over here in front of me in the Randy Marion studio. And so how's Bryson doing? He had a little bit of a good luck, bad luck here just a few minutes ago before the show started.
What was that?
You remember over here?
Oh, yeah. I don't know what I have done to this pole that we have in the back. We've got this curtain that we use Wednesday nights. Yeah. And this pole just, decided to nearly take me out. So thank God I'm still here. By the grace of God, I'm still here. But yeah, man, that was weird. The thing just it just was kind of random. But
well, there's a good possibility this studio is haunted. I mean, it was put here
pretty historic
in 1889. So it's been around a long time. And you walked right by this pole, and it decided to fall over when you had your water in your hand.
Yeah. It was bad. It nearly knocked it out of my hand, but it was perfect because it fell right in front of me, and I just, you kind of see it coming out of the little corner of your eye.
That's right.
Kind of a crazy situation. But anyways,
you made it through.
Yeah, we made it through, and we survived.
So we're going to have a call in from Mr. Bill Blair here in about 15 minutes, and then I'm also going to replay a show or some of the segments when we had Waddell Wilson on the show when he talks about all of his victories with the Daytona 500. Have you had 7 of them altogether, which is unheard of between crew chief, engine builder, and that type of thing. And then we're also going to play a little bit of a Donnie Allison replay. All this in honor of the Daytona 500. And we're going to talk to Mr. Bill Blair about some of the happenings when we were down there. And he stuck around. He goes down there every year. Because his dad won in 1953 the beach road course
on the beach. Yeah. That's pretty cool. I know he's very proud of his family history and especially his dad. And with it being the 75th anniversary of NASCAR, there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on down there, especially up at the North Turn and the Streamline Hotel and all that. That's the general area. So. He's going to have a lot to talk about, I'm sure. Yeah,
and speaking of 75 years, he was at the first Wilkesboro race 75 years ago.
Yeah, we're bringing that back too, right? Took a near 25-year vacation or something like that almost. Yeah. So, man, that's exciting too. This is going to be a good year for racing. I mean, we watching the race yesterday, it was just a good race. I think you take last year was kind of a test run. Everybody was kind of learning, but now things are starting to get figured out. So I think the racing is going to get real good, and it was good yesterday. So yeah, good season.
It was kind of like it was this same old racing where they line them up at Daytona, the speedway, the drafting, of course, like the freight train, one behind the other, and they just line them up in 2 lines. You could go higher, you could go low. That's sort of one way they mixed it up. You could choose whether to go high or low.
Well, yeah, this is the first time they've done that. Actually, they did it at Atlanta, which is now like a super speedway race, But they've never done it at Daytona or Talladega, and I like that because it kind of, allows teammates or whatnot to kind of switch up and strategize with that. Because before, wherever you're at, whenever the caution flag comes out, that's where you restart. So now it kind of shakes it up a little bit. We saw that strategy used towards the end of the race with RCR whenever Kyle Busch took the outside and Austin Dillon took the inside, and they were able to kind of conform on the front row and lead a couple of laps that way. So, yeah, I think that's a big deal. And I like the choose rule. A lot of people don't really like it, but I think it kind of adds to the amount of competition makes it a little bit more
Speaking of racing,
fun. I guess, yeah, we're racing in Statesville.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that rule too. I think
Yeah.
that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Adds another element.
Shakes it up a little bit. Gives a little bit more, I guess, I don't know if you'd say it gives more power to the drivers. I guess it does in a way, but it
Strategy.
allows for more strategy, yeah.
Yep. So we kind of knew that they were going to do that between because the 3 and the 8, whenever they lined up the way they did side by side,
Yeah.
it was like we knew they were going to jump out there. It wasn't going to take them long to get back in line, and
No.
they didn't. It only took
Kalpa started first on the restart, so he was able to kind of get a head jump on the 3 car anyway, and the 3 car just kind of let him down. So pretty strategic. And then you get back about mid pack, and there's a lot of rattling going on back there as cars are bumping and getting loose off the corner, and it's caused a couple accidents there late that kind of screwed up their plan, but. Overall, it was pretty neat. I also, like the past couple of plate races, it seems like we've got 3 manufacturers in NASCAR, and it always seems like your Toyotas are pitting together, your Fords are pitting together, your Chevys are pitting together, and they're all kind of running in their same line. And they did that yesterday, but I don't feel like it was as extreme. I felt like there were a lot of Fords working with Chevys, there were a lot of Chevys working with Toyotas, and just everybody was kind of mixed up, and I think that made it a little more interesting. There towards the end, I think it was Bubba Wallace pitted with his Chevys. There were a couple guys just kind of taking things into their own hands instead of relying on whatever plan their manufacturers had, and I think that's kind of important because I don't like it to be where I think teammates can be a huge ally on the racetrack, but I don't think you should have 20 other teammates out there and all be necessarily working together with
manufacturers
with your manufacturer. Yeah, so I thought that was pretty cool to see.
Yep. I even saw one time when Nagano decided not to go with the Ford and in the draft, and that was toward the end of the race. And I think probably the biggest thing about the very ending of that race was whenever Logano, it looked like he won the race,
Yeah.
when they threw the caution, but they said it was up to NASCAR to decide when they threw the caution. And so the wreck happened. Logano was out front. NASCAR waited and threw the caution after the fact.
Yeah.
So.
And we saw it Saturday night, too, in the Xfinity race, kind of the same situation. Listening to NASCAR on the SiriusXM channel this week, I learned a lot. So, for example, at Hickory and for forever in NASCAR, the flagman has always flipped a switch, and that's what throws the caution light on, right? But now they trigger the caution light from the tower. So the tower has a button now. They press a button, and that is time synced with the video, whatever the official video is from Fox, I guess, of the time of the crash. Whenever they hit that button, it's time stamped. So they're able to go back frame by frame and look and, make sure that they're making the right call. And it was a lot closer on Saturday night with Justin Allgaier and was it Austin Hill there for RCR. But, it did look like Logano. And even when they come back around, I think if, they used to, back in the day, they used to race back around to the start-finish line. If they would have done that, Logano would have won the race. But he finished up there. He crossed the line first, but it ended up being Stenhouse, and I'm happy for Stenhouse. I like to see a guy like that with a smaller team win a race, especially the Daytona 500, so that's a big deal. Yeah,
that was pretty cool. And after the race, after he won, he climbed the fence, and I thought about our buddy Dickie Dennis.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yep.
He didn't quite get up as high as Dickie did, though. But
no, not quite, but I assume it's pretty steep there at Daytona. Yeah.
Yeah, so good evening to Philip Riot and Leland Johnson. Dickie Dennis is tuned in, and Dirk Bumgardner, my old buddy from Roush Yates Engines, is listening in as well. And so we're talking about Stenhouse. The other thing, he was so he poked out just in front of Logano right there after the fact. So the guy that was pushing the button, he must not play very many video games because his reaction time was a little slow.
Yeah. It definitely was a little bit slow. I don't know who it is that has. I don't know if it's one person that has a specific job. I guess they're the race steward or whatever is in charge of pressing that. But Yeah, that they play a key role now, especially at the super speedways, because it seems like every time we go to a Daytona, Talladega, or now Atlanta, when we go to overtime, typically it's not the last overtime, or when they get on that final lap, there's going to be a flag thrown, and it's not always the checkered flag, and it seems to be more common. So when we go to these bigger super speedways and have these late restarts, that guy is playing a important and key role. But NASCAR's stance has always been number one. So what they say goes, and if whenever they hit the button, that's when they call it. So when they decide it's a caution, whoever that's up to, that pretty much decides the race.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like other sports, baseball, football, whatever, you got the instant replays, but now NASCAR, they made the call and that was it.
Yeah, that was, and there's a lot of human factor. Like look at baseball, who in the AAA is trying out an AI system for the umpire. So the umpire has an earpiece now that calls balls and strikes. So he's just kind of a figure. But in NASCAR, we don't have anything like that. You still got the human aspect of, real people making the decisions, and that adds for, I guess, character, and can make some people happy, and it can make some people really aggravated and mad at the end of a race. But that's something that's unique with NASCAR. They're pretty much sticking to that, I guess, human aspect of the control over the race.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's basically like this. So they started the race. It was nearly a 200 mile an hour. In the front row was Hendrick Motorsports. Pastrana actually led a lap. So I met him years ago.
Did.
He came into he drove for Roush for a little while, for 1 year, one season. And he came into Roush Yates engines, and he actually invited us, me and some other guys, to come over and ride some motorcycles or something.
Yeah.
But I didn't end up doing it, of course, and one of those things. And so Brad Keselowski won stage one over Ryan Preece, who had a really good run.
Yeah, I think Ryan Preece, by the way, is going to have a really good season. I'm glad that he raced for JTG back when they had the two cars in their roster before just having one. But I think he's somebody that is has been overlooked a lot, and I think Tony Stewart, being the driver that he is, has seen a lot in him, and I think he's going to have a good season. But as far as yesterday goes, I think Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher at RFK probably had the best cars, at least when you had a long run. It just seemed like they were able to create their own runs, and they worked together really well. And it just seemed like when they got together, they were pretty much unbeatable when they were in the front. So,
yeah.
The cars are so similar at a super speedway because everybody's pack racing, but you can tell when there's that little bit of extra push that comes from a car. And I think the 6 and the 17 had that yesterday. But it was cool because they struggled a lot last season, and they had some trouble, figuring out some things and kind of, I guess, starting a rebirth with Roush. But I think they're off on a
I want to ask Chris a question about that. Whenever he was following with Keselowski, would he, if he was in second place on the last lap, would he pull out and try to pass the boss man? That'd be a good question.
What would you do
to pass Keselowski?
If you're in his shoes?
If I were in his shoes, I would try to win. I would go for it. But Keselowski's, he's hungry to win a Daytona 500.
Yeah, he's been racing for so long, and he's they were comparing a lot of guys to Dale Earnhardt yesterday. Kyle Busch was one of them because there's so many guys that have raced for so many years and not won it. It seems like they've won everything in a super speedway except a 500, which shows how difficult it is to win. But yeah, I think if you're on the last lap, you have to pull out and make that move.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, we're going to go over to our good buddy Bill Blair's calling in. He's going to talk a little bit about his dad won Daytona in 1953. How about that? Isn't that correct?
Hey,
sir?
David.
Hey there, Bill Blair.
Yes, David. Yeah.
Hey,
yeah,
buddy.
1953.
Yeah. And so we saw you down there. We were down at the Racing's North Turn. We went out to dinner, and I had the Bill Blair grouper sandwich, and you did as well. It was very good.
Yes, it was lucky to be open again after the two storms came through there, and they got it open, but they didn't do the parade.
Right. Yeah, I was really surprised. I was actually surprised to see that the beach was there because, and you saw video, it was like, it looked like it all got washed away.
Well, it did, but I walked out there, and it looked to me like he could do the parade. And I saw the former owners of the North Turn restaurant and Rhonda Glossnick, and they said the beach was okay. They could have done the parade.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the environmentalists want to make sure the turtles are going to be okay.
Oh, yes, the turtles. Yep.
That's what it's about, you know.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool though. You're very instrumental with that parade and with the car that your dad drove. Well, the replica, the 1953 Oldsmobile.
Yeah, it's a trivet car. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's a trivet car.
Love seeing that.
I found it
with it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Listen.
Well, I found the car out in Iowa. A professor at the Iowa State University had an ad in the Motor Image years and years ago, about 1982, I believe it was, and I bought it from him and brought it back and painted it. And it was the dark blue with a white top, just like Buck Baker's car was in '53. But anyway, I painted the Eskimo white with this white paint, a little bit of green in it, and had it lettered and everything, just like the car he had. And I didn't tell him about it. And when I got it done, I called him up and asked him to come down to the shop and we'd have a cup of coffee. And he said, "Be fine." So a little bit he came by and got out there on the parking lot, you know, and come in. So you ready to go? And I said, "Yeah, let's go over and pick up Jackie Baker." Now, the car was over at Jackie Baker's. That was 2 doors up the street on Main Street in High Point. And so I said, "Let's go over and pick up Jackie." So he walked over there with me and walked in the door, and I set that car, and he said, "Well, I'll be damned." He never did get much emotional about nothing, but it surprised him anyway. So we carried this event. He went with us. We carried to Elkin, North Carolina, and up to High Point and different places like that. And he'd go with us, you know, and talk to the people, and he enjoyed it.
Oh, that's cool. I'd love to have been a fly on the wall to see that, seeing when he saw the car. I mean, that's got to be great. And then I saw you up at High Point with that car, and then have you ever taken it? Wait, obviously you've taken it down to Daytona, but you didn't go this year. You didn't take it because they didn't have the parade this year.
That's right.
But
we took it about 6 years in a row, I think, you know, and then took it the year they had the COVID. We went down there, got there on I guess it was like on a Friday night, and got up the next morning and carried it to the beach, and that's when Matthew Dillner was Lost Speedways, you know, it was Little E's program.
Mm-hmm.
And we rode it in the parade and then spent, I guess 2 hours out on the beach. They was filming and talking about how racing used to be at Daytona Beach, you know, and the players and what had happened. And later on, it was aired on Little E's program, Lost Speedways. Turned out to be a right good show.
Oh, yeah.
If I must say so, yeah.
Yeah, very good. So we were down there for the Racing's North Turn, as I mentioned, and then Scott and Jenna came and had dinner with us. Bob Hissam and let's see, Ray Lamb and your wife.
Yeah, I
Sheila.
don't remember all the players.
Yeah,
we had a crowd.
Yeah, Joey Cudmore stopped by to see me, and I should have introduced you to him. And
I didn't know him.
Yeah, so then the next morning we went and had breakfast over at the first turn restaurant.
Well, that was interesting. But the North Turn, we got Bill Blair's grouper.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good. I always liked that. And I'm surprised that they still had it on the menu, but they did. They kept it on the menu. And, I hope those guys that bought it. I think they got 2 other restaurants there around Daytona, and I hope next year they'll have the parade going again. Because that's, one of the main attractions coming down during Speed Week is go to North Turn's parade.
Mm-hmm. Well, so you stayed over at the Streamline, right?
Streamline Hotel. That's the hotel where all the guys got together in December 1947 and talked about racing for about a week, and they formed NASCAR.
Mm. So you were...
it's a right historic place.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So they had the is that a Legends Dinner? Is that at the Streamline too?
Well, they had several events there during the week, but, go back to history just a little bit. That hotel, I think, was the first hotel to have and maybe the only one in Daytona, had a ebony room, they called it, but it had a bar on top of the building, a lounge up there. And that's where all the guys met, and it's still there to this day. And NASCAR had a meeting there this past week. It was on, I believe, Thursday night possibly, and we were there, and Tuesday night I believe it was, and they provided free drinks for us for a couple hours, and very nice to us. We met some of the people there in the meeting. They were having a short track meeting. And of course, then on Wednesday, Eddie Roach had his show there. He had probably, I don't know, a good number of people signed autographs. The Allisons were there and different ones, and Red Farmer, I don't think he could come. He had something happen that he couldn't be there. But a lot of them were there. I think Gary Ballou was there, Ronnie Thomas, and Gary Pollock, and Charlie Roberts, and different ones. And I went and attended and met a lot of my old friends. David Soulsby was there with his number 50 39 Ford that his dad had won on the beach there in 1948, I believe it was, 48 or 49. Goldberg's one of the guys that won 3 races back in the day. That's pretty hard to do,
Mm-hmm.
But he was a famous wheelman, a real good driver. He was a wheelman. He turned them sideways to get in the corner and come off the corner sideways. Put on a show.
Yeah.
Always good to see David, and he kept that car over the years. He restored it, and it's very much like it was when his dad drove it back years and years ago.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd like to stuck around to see that, but ended up having to get back to go to work,
Well, you'd enjoyed it. He had a lot of people there. He had, I think they allowed him 35 parking spaces, and they all had race cars in them. And then it was full, of people signing autographs. I don't know, maybe 50 people, 40 people, something, I don't know. But there was a lot of people signing autographs, and I didn't know a lot of the guys there, but there's a lot of them that run around in Florida, the short track divisions, and I think that they honor them at some point in time in March, I believe it is. Zed Baker does that. It's called a Florida short track reunion, and they do that in March at the Hard Rock Hotel, I believe it is. But Eddie had a good show, and it went off very well, and I enjoyed it. They had the food, drinks, very nicely done, and everybody, I think, had a great time. And he keeps on, he's going to need a bigger venue to do that in because there's not much more space to do it.
Right.
It was full.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you mentioned the first turn. I had not been to that restaurant before, but it's a very nice place, and I like the way they had it outdoors. You had tables and chairs outdoors, and it had a cover built, and you could sit outdoors. If it's raining, whatever, you're okay because you're protected.
Yeah.
Then the inside, they also had booths and everything, but Zed had it all set up for an autograph meet and greet session, and it turned out very well. There's a lot of people there, and a lot of people there signing autographs, and I enjoyed it. We were going to do a roundtable session and talk about racing, but it was so windy and so much noise from the highway and people talking that we decided not to do it. Zeta decided not to do it this year, so next year I think she's going to line up another place just to do the meet and greet, which will stay at the first turn, but what she's going to have to move, I think, as she was talking about, is the roundtable session. And she mentioned like maybe up at the Ormond Garage up there. They call it this restaurant up at Ormond Beach. But she needs a place to do that that's not so noisy. But
right.
see, the first turn right on the highway there, so it's hard to do it right there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
And now, it seems that maybe if they worked out something, they could go inside, find a spot there, they might could do it. I don't know. But anyway, she's making some kind of decision before long how she's going to handle that. But Ronnie Rum, I think, and he's the president of it's called the Return to Back to the Roots of Racing, I believe it is, Back to the Roots of Auto Racing. And Hank Goodwrench is her vice president. She's chairman of the board, but they very nicely put that show on, and everybody enjoyed it, had a good crowd. And, you can sit there and you can eat and drink and just have a good time. Very good place to have that event.
Yeah, I saw Ronnie Rome there that evening whenever we went by, and then the next morning when we went for breakfast, as Johnny Allen was
right.
Good talking to him.
Yeah, Johnny was there. I got to talk to him. He's a very, very nice guy.
My wife, Traci reminded me that it was Bill Rossi was there with us.
Yeah, Bill Rossi. Yeah.
And
he was there.
And she said to make sure to tell you hello. She is actually working this evening, so she's not here.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, somebody's got to get a paycheck, hasn't they?
Yeah, that's right.
There you go. There you go.
Well, she had to.
I heard she told somebody maybe it's good about time you went to work. She's just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
No, I know. I'm sure she's probably in the tanning booth right now. So No, she works
That's
at a
just hard work, isn't it?
She works at a tan salon there, Carolina Tan. So yeah, I have to give her a hard time about that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, she does very well, though.
Yeah.
She's a nice person. You got a good wife. And I really like her dad, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a
you've
lot
had
of
him
people
on
don't know who her dad is, yeah.
You've had him on your show,
I sure have. Kenny Thompson.
which is something I haven't yet.
Yeah.
He called in.
Well, he's a hoot. Yeah.
Yeah. So
He's a great fabricator.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you
Legendary.
know, the events they have there at the Speed Week, I call it, it starts the previous weekend before the race, and generally on Saturday it's always been the parade. And this time it was the first turn there for Zeta. That went very well. And then that was Saturday. And then Sunday you had the registration for the parade over to Living Legends, you know. And then Monday they had the Living Legends parade, and it turned out very nicely. They had the cars parked on the, what I call the church lot there on A1A. And most people just call it a church lot. I don't know what they call it now, but if you tell them it's just a church lot, then most people know where it is at. So that turned out very well. They had a lot of nice show cars, too, and a lot of race cars, and made a lot of your friends. Wayne Haynes had the Fireball Roberts number 2262 gold and black Pontiac. It's a Truett car. It's very, very much like the one that Smokey built for Fireball, you know, back in the day. And every detail he's tried to duplicate, and he did a very, very nice job at it. And the engine in that car comes from my shop. I built that some years ago.
Wow. Okay.
So it's still running, believe it or not. That blows yet.
That's cool.
But Wayne, you know, represents O'Reilly, and he follows the vintage circuit of stock car racing, and he likes to support the old veterans of stock car racing and all the old drivers. And I shouldn't call them that because I'm old too, you know. I guess we're just the senior citizens, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well seasoned.
But yeah, we've been around, run a few laps, and gonna make a few more laps, but a few cautions now and then. But I mean, you know, these are people that really were there from the get-go and are very much responsible for racing through the years of what we got today. And I was hoping it'd be better racing, but you know, us old guys, we don't. I don't really dig the kind of racing they do today at Daytona, but I guess it's okay. It's about all they can do, I guess.
Yeah.
But I'm used to seeing a race, and they have a parade. They really have about a 495-mile or 490-mile parade, and then they race for 10 laps, something like that, I guess.
That's pretty good. Yes, I didn't think about
That's
that.
accurate.
Yeah, that is.
But anyway,
Tell us
you got
about
somebody else on the line?
Yeah, well, we got Bryson Davis in here with us.
Hey, Bill.
Bryson.
Hey, how are you?
Well, I'm great. I thought I heard you back there.
Yes, sir.
Who else you got there?
That's it.
Just the two of us.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all hold it down. That's right. Traci's not there to school you guys.
No,
Right,
she's
yeah.
keep us in line.
Yeah, we're
She
all
says-
out of line.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
says, I'm working, exclamation, exclamation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about the commercial there. We saw that during the
Oh,
race.
yeah. Well, gosh, I don't know how they done it so quick. I had no idea when it's going to do that, but I got a call, I guess, let's see, it was about a week before, let's see, it's been about 2 weeks before the race, you know. It seems like it was about 2 weeks. We went to the Speedway with Charlotte out in the parking lot. Had to be there at daybreak. They wanted the sun coming up. And then they had these smoke machines out there. It's a motor that blows the fan, and they pour burnt oil into it and on the exhaust, and it makes smoke, and out across the yard it goes, and it looks like fog coming up. And they had two of them, and we get the Oldsmobile, the 53 Olds Trivet car that my dad, you know, had. And so we sat still there in the parking lot, and the guy waves the green flag, and we gas it and spin the wheels and take off. We did that about a dozen times, and then did different stages of taking off. And then they did a lot of shots at the car. They spent about 2 hours doing that, and I think about 3 seconds of it in the commercial.
Yeah.
I guess they can make some more commercials. But it's really, really interesting. I enjoyed that, and they're very nice people. But it was Allied Bank, you know, and I didn't know it, but and Sheila told me that's the old GMAC finance company.
Okay.
When you used to buy a car from General Motors, you'd finance it with GMAC.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's Allied Bank now.
Okay. Didn't know that.
And Sheila just happened to know the girl that was in charge of that. I think she used to work with her up at Kevin Harvest in Kernersville.
Oh, okay. Wow. How about that? How things all come together.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't know how they done it so quick, but they knew what they're doing, no doubt about it.
Well, I saw it, and Bryson saw it too.
Mm-hmm.
So we recognize that car.
Yes.
Yeah, he did. Well, I taped the event, so last night I pulled it up for Sheila, found it, and she, copied on her little phone, and we put it on a Facebook page so people could see it. And then, anyway, in addition to Eddie's deal and Phaedra's, we visited some of the people we know down there. Stopped by the Main Street station, talked to Phaedra Lee, that used to have Back to the Roots, and she told me that next year she'll definitely be back with Back to the Roots, and she's got everything worked out. I guess she was having little problems with the city and meeting their regulations and requirements, And but anyway, I think they got it all worked out, so she said she'll be back next year. So they'll have enough to keep us busy. I mean, we had 2 dormant days that we just got to go places and meet people and see them and visit, and it worked out real well,
Mm-hmm.
So we came home. We left about 2:00 Thursday after Eddie's event and came on home, got home about midnight. Had a good trip and enjoyed it, a lot of fun.
Yeah. Looking forward to next year, I'm sure.
Well, yes.
I'm too.
Yes. The worst thing about that whole trip is the traffic on 95. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just seems like there's more traffic every year.
Oh,
more and more.
You went down on a Friday, wasn't it? And it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Of
probably.
course, Friday's about the worst time, but
yeah.
Anyway, it worked out. She was a good driver. She drove all the way down, all the way back, and let me sit over and ride. Said, you just rest, and I rested. Of course, I'd worked real hard all week, and I needed that vacation.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. She's probably listening to you right now, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. She's getting madder and madder right a minute, I think. She said I settled her in the passenger seat and give her finger directions. I got a little. I'll tell her how to get on. Get a little bit faster. I twirl my hand a little bit, speed it up, and then when I need to slow up, I hold my hand up like I'm fixing to hit the windshield, and I point. But she likes that. Maybe we'll have a good time. But she's a good driver. She drives pretty steady. So it worked out real good.
Yeah, you and I both got the same treatment there. Traci drove down, and I drove most of the way back. But yeah, it was good.
I want to tell you, over at Eddie Roach's, I don't know what we should call that, Streamline Hotel event, I guess, meet and greet. But a lot of the conversation was about how racing used to be, and it seems like that's a big topic everywhere you go now, how racing used to be and compared to today. Mm-hmm. And I'm not really, when I grew up, racing was totally different. And technology and money has changed racing so much, you don't hardly recognize it now. It's no akin to what it used to be, but still it's a race. And I respect those guys and what they do and the vehicles they're racing. And, what else can they do,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you were an engine builder in your years, too, and you were able to do a lot more than they're able to do right now, too.
Well, yeah, you're limited to what you can do today. And so you stayed right busy studying how you could get more performance, whether it be handling or engine power, And I think it used to be like you needed 9 horsepower to run a 1 mile an hour faster at Daytona. So I don't know what it is now, but the cars are so much more aerodynamically and designed and with the downforce they have and so forth. But I think that, back in the early days, they didn't know. They all of them thought you had to have a camshaft, good camshaft. And of course, they're flathead boards, and so it started there with the cars of the 30s, and then the early 40s would come along with a war, so quit making cars for a while. So went back to racing. They still use 39, 40 Fords, and then eventually they run out of these cars, and France said, "Well, what we're going to do, boys?" And so he staged that. I believe it was in Florida, might have been Jacksonville, West Palm Bay, somewhere down that way. He got some cars out of the infield. I think they were tow cars and newer cars, and had a 10-lap race to see what it's going to be like, and the people there in the stands liked it. So I think up in New Jersey somewhere they'd already had a division called Strictly Stock, but what it was I don't know, but I know they called it Strictly Stock. I saw it in Speed Age magazine one time, and my dad knew that Don O'Reilly, the editor of Speed Age, he always tried to come to Greensboro Fairgrounds, some Bill Francis races. I think they were friends. But anyway, he decided to take a chance in 1949, June 19th, and had a strictly stock race, and it turned out very well. I had read word that there's 19,000 people there, and then some said 23,000. I think he reported to the government he had about 13,000, as I remember. And but it just really, the racing they were doing, Dave, was getting a little bit stale. The modifieds were, and people getting, they've seen them, all these years, so it wasn't nothing new. The same drivers and all. The Flock Boys, Red Barn, Ed Samples, Billy Carden, Gober Souls, but then up here you had Jimmy Lou Allen, my daddy, and different ones like that. So that was a very successful event he had over there. And in the paper, it said, Greensboro paper went and looked at it here a few years ago, and Todd Morris to see what it did say about it. And the paper called it an experiment of Bill Francis. This is merely an experiment. And then it didn't say nothing else Monday and Tuesday the following week about who won it. But it did say on about Wednesday that Hubert Westland had sued Bill France and NASCAR because of the disqualification of his car that Glenn Dunaway drove to a victory. And what had happened, the car had been over there all week. And I think qualifying, I'm not sure how they were doing that, maybe by each day, 2 or 3 days of qualifying. But anyway, it had rained, and a lot of the qualifying never took place. But I think, as I remember, some of them did get their times in, and I don't know exactly how many cars they had, but I just don't know. Something like that had to have, at least to me, as I remember, about 20. And 49, you see, I was 11 years old, so I just don't remember it all that great. But I know he drove out Lincoln from Kansas, my daddy did, and he never qualified. I think he started in the rear. And the 5th lap, he was leading that race. And, of course, he asked that guy that owned it, Ben McIntyre, I believe it was, from Great Bend, Kansas, had 2 Lincolns over there. And Jim Roper drove they took out on the highway, see which one was the fastest, and they gave that to Jim Roper. My daddy drove the slowest one. In 5 laps, he was leading the race, and Mr. Club just told him, said, drive it like you own it, just drive the hell out of it. So that's what my daddy did. And at one point in time there, before he come in to make a pit stop, he was, according to who you talked to and where you read it, but it's anywhere from 2 to 4 laps on second place car. And that would have been Glenn Dunaway in that car, Hubert Westland. It was a liquor car. And during a week over there, it had been there, and this guy named Al Chrysler, I believe was his name, the inspector. He had seen that car, looked up under it, according to Hubert, and checked it, and everything was okay. But after he ended up winning the race, he disqualified it because he had altered the springs back there in the back.
Oh, yeah.
And the way he had altered them was he welded some angle iron braces so that the car would only set down so far before it hit the hangers. And so Hubert didn't think that was right, and so he sued him. Of course, Greensboro is where it was tried, Greensboro, North Carolina, and the judge ruled in Bill Francis' favor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was the Helper Springs, wasn't it, the deal?
Well, it was liquor springs, yeah. In other words, if you put 125 gallons of white lighting on those cars, the headlights will shine up in the air as it's coming toward you. You wouldn't see where he's going because it's shining like his searchlights at the airport back in those days. And so a lot of the trippers got caught because the car sitting in the rear end was a giveaway. So sometime in the 30s, later 30s, they began to put helper springs on them. They added springs with 2 additional hangers that let it go so far down, and then the extra hangers on each end would pick up the other springs, so it just become much stiffer spring. Then some of them welded angle iron or supports up under there. When it hit that, it got solid. It was riding on like a solid axle then. Mm-hmm. And then some of them were just taking that spring and building it up, beefing it up, and putting it up under there, and the car was set high in the rear end until it got liquor on it, then it was set level. Mm. But that was a dead giveaway.
Right.
And you see you come down the road, the ASN sitting down on the ground, you notice full of liquor, notice full of something, so they'd chase you, pull you over, and make you stop. You wouldn't stop, they'd shoot your tires out from under you, or however they could wreck you, or, get to you, they're going to stop you if they could.
Yeah.
And hence the moonshine chases.
Coming back from Daytona, there was a pickup truck we passed by, and it had the back end of it was pushed way down, and And I was thinking, that's not real safe on that thing. And then we got about a few miles down the road, and I saw it had ran off the road. And I got to thinking about that. Yeah, and I got to thinking about that, what you were just talking about too. So
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, those boys back then, that was the beginning. Actually, hauling liquor, you go back way back in time. Moonshine came from over in, I believe I read somewhere another came from over in Iraq. They brought, over here later on. Scots Irish people brought over here, and of course they made out potatoes. Mm-hmm. And the Cherokee Indians introduced them to corn, then it became corn liquor. And they all had their own recipes. But the distribution, really the capital of the moonshine here in this country is right over here around Statesville. At one point in time, I think it had been in before Prohibition, they were, the railroads intersected over around Statesville, north, south, east, west.
Yeah.
And that's where it's all brought to and shipped from. It went to all over the country. Then later on, Dawsonville said they were the moonshine capital, and then Wilkesboro said they were, and then, of course, Franklin, Virginia said they were.
Well, back before the Civil War, Salisbury was bigger than Charlotte even.
I heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you got to Asheville, that was the jumping off point. If you headed west, was Asheville, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And if I ain't mistaken, the railroad stopped over around Statesville. I believe that's far the railroad went, wasn't it?
Yep. Yeah, about there.
And, I believe so.
Let's say
and you got
happy birthday to Dargan Watts right quick.
Oh, yeah. Dargan turned 78 yesterday, I believe it was, when I talked to him today.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Sure did. Yeah.
He's
doing very well, and probably listened to the show tonight.
Yeah, and, he's tuned in.
Yeah, he said he's not feeling real well. He's getting better.
Okay. Yeah, we hope he gets better real soon.
There you go. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Now, he's a guy that loves history, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, for sure. He's always posting stuff about it and sending emails and that type of thing. So very good stuff.
I think he's the one that more or less introduced me to you, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. I believe so. Yep. Yes, sir.
Well, he knows just about everybody.
Yeah, he sure does. Been around a while, around the racing world. Well, Bill, we're going to run on. I'm going to play that replay of the what I was telling you about Waddell Wilson. We're going to play that here shortly. I'm going to play a couple commercials, and then
that'd be great.
Going to roll into that, and it'll be for a little while. It's going to be talking about his Daytona wins.
You got it.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you so much. Really, like I said, once again, I enjoyed Daytona Speed Week was very well. Those guys and gals that put that on did a very, very good job. Look forward to going back and seeing them again. And don't forget Mount Airy, September the 8th and 9th. We'll all be up there, and it's going to be a great event this year.
Yeah, that would be great. That's the Mount Airy. That's the Moonshiners and Racers reunion coming up
in
September.
And we'll have more moonshiners this year, and a guy named Biggin will be there. I talked to him here about a week ago. He's a very popular moonshiner. He does stand-up comedy, and he also sings. Great guy. He's coming. I talked to him last week.
All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill.
Good to talk to you.
Good talking to you, too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And, of course, Bill and Sheila there, Bill Blair. His dad won in 1953 Daytona on the Beach Road course. And then Bill went to his first race in 1940. So how about that? He's been around a long time around the racing world.
He saw a lot of good history.
Oh, yeah.
He's a walking history book, too.
He is walking encyclopedia. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to Racing Roots with Hamm. Don't go anywhere.
Do you dread going into work every day? Sick of the long hours and short pay? Well, make a change today. Join an industry-leading team that helps local businesses get ready for the workday. Cintas is hiring route service sales representatives in Statesville and Hickory. Enjoy a 4-day work week, no nights or weekends, comprehensive benefits, and starting pay of $23 an hour with additional earning potential. To learn more and promo code WAME20. Safe and sure. CBD from Purity Labs.
550 and 92.9 WAME.
All right, we're back to Racing Roots with Hamm, and we just got off the phone with Mr. Bill Blair, and that was a great call from Bill. Always loved talking to him, hearing his history.
Yeah, like I said, he's a walking history book. He's got a whole lot of knowledge about stock car racing, and so I know he has a good time at the stuff that goes on down there at Daytona and the stuff he gets up for Mount Airy. So that's exciting. But
you have to ride out there with me to his shop sometime.
I know, man. He's been telling me, or last time I was able to talk to him, he told me I needed to come down there, and I need to. But he's got he's almost got a museum there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
He really does. Dargan Watt says he hit the big 83 mark Saturday. Okay, 83.
83.
Wow. I think, what did Bill say, like 78? But he was close.
Yeah.
That's close. What's a few years amongst friends?
Yeah.
And Jim Dooley's tuned in as well up in Virginia. Thank you for watching the show. We're going to roll right into some we had Waddell Wilson on the show about 8 months ago, and he told us a lot of his history, of course, and he talked about his wins at Daytona. So we're going to go ahead and listen to a little bit of that replay. So y'all stay tuned, and I'm going to be right here. Me and Bryson are going to be commenting back and forth with you on YouTube. So if you're listening on the radio and you'd like to see us here live in the Randy Marion studio, you can go to DHammiam on YouTube, or also do a search Racing Roots, and you'll be able to find it there. So here we go. One more Daytona 500s than probably any other engine builder, I'd say.
Well, engine's 7 altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But then 3 is a crew chief and engine builder.
Yeah. And see, that's very impressive, and to say the least. And that's so. Who were your drivers when you won the 3? I'm quizzing you now.
The first time was in '65 with Lorenzen, and then '68 with Mario Andretti, and then it was in 1980 with Buddy Baker. You know, in what we call the great. Well, I know I built engines in '72 for the Wood Brothers when A.J. Foyt won Daytona and Ontario, and then whenever David won, well, he won it later. But anyway, then in '75, you know, that was Benny Parsons.
Yes.
That was the first time we went down with a small engine.
Yeah. But I remember going into the Riverview Inn down in Charlotte, the West Charlotte, because that's where I went to school at Harding. In 1987, we were number 2 in the state in our football team. And I remember seeing you coming in, and I was like, that's Waddell Wilson. Not, you know, a lot of people might not have knew that, but me, I was, 16, and I knew that. Because,
Wow.
yes. I mean, I've always loved NASCAR and the history and all that stuff. And as I told you before the show, I used to ride my bicycle down there by Dixie River Road and Hammond and Moody and all these shops. But you were at Hammond and Moody in the 60s, and I wasn't around then.
Yeah, I went to work in '63 and then worked through '72. And it ended well in '71. That's when Bobby Allison won all the races at Black Mercury. And in '68 and '69, we run Pearson for the championship, won it both years. And then '72, Glenn come to me and wanted to know if I'd stay around and build his engine that year. So I built his engine in '72.
Oh, okay. That's cool. So you worked with at Hammond and Moody. You worked with a lot of people, because that was almost like a training ground. I mean, if you call it that, because all these people ended up moving on. As Traci's dad was one of them, Kenny Thompson.
When I went to work at Hammond and Moody, there was only 30-some of us, and that included the secretaries.
Wow.
And it was amazing what went on in that place, you know. But a normal day was 8 in the morning till 10 at night.
Okay.
And it come Thursday night at 10 o'clock, you was he was wore out.
I'll bet
So
so.
you stood on your feet all the time.
Yeah,
And I tried to get out of the engine room and go work on the race car, but I never did accomplish that one.
never quite did
I
it.
always had to stay in the engine room and build engines.
Yeah, I had that opportunity too, and I decided to go with the engines. Kel Yarborough come along and started. He's a carpenter or something, right?
Oh, he was an apprentice carpenter at that. Mm-hmm. Banging John Holman for a ride. And then the Ford Motor Company gave him a ride,
Yeah.
or gave him a chance, and he proved out to be the one they took. And
Yeah.
they put him in Banjo's car to start with. And, boy, he was amazing right off the get-go.
Yeah. He was a scrappy little fellow, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah. Well, they tried to get him to play football for the South Carolina did, and he didn't want to do that. He wanted to race cars.
Okay. Well, that was a good decision, I think, because he's as small as he was, playing football. It might not have been the best thing, but he's probably fast.
Well, he was tough. Let me tell you, he was toughest one human being I ever run up against.
Yeah. I got a text from our buddy Cliff Champion, and he says, Waddell Wilson, a legend. And he said, I had the privilege of working with Waddell and Buddy Baker to win the 1980 Daytona 500.
Yeah, that was quite a special day, you
That's
know.
cool.
But, they back, in 68 and 69, we, won the championship. But then in 73, I went to work for LG DeWitt. And then in 75, Benny won the Daytona 500. Mm-hmm. And out of an engine, I wouldn't give you $200 for.
Yeah.
But there's a lot behind that.
That's the other thing I was reading about the engine you were talking about. Kind of it wasn't it was put together with a bunch of almost scrap part kind of stuff.
Well, we was at Riverside. That was the first race of the year, and somebody gave him a box of pistons. So he come to me, tickled to death, Benny was. He said, I got a set of pistons. I looked at him. I said, drag race piston. That's quarter mile. We run 500 miles. He said, yeah, but that guy says they'll work. Okay. Went to the shop, back to Taylor and built the engine. And I said, we need to build another one. We can't afford another one. So I go then in 74 when we blowed up all those engines. I go through all the old used parts and finally found enough to put a engine together, which I wouldn't give you $200 for when I got through it. And we go to Daytona, and the second lap, he blew that engine up, the new one that we built pistons out. But anyway, blew it up, and they put that old engine in. And, we qualified with it. We practiced with it, run the 125. We started it, and we fell out of it. Here we are going to run the 500 with it. Come down next to the end, and he's running second, and David Pearson in the Wood Brothers car, he spins out, and we end up winning the race. And that was the miracle that we won that race. But I had to go to the tear down, make sure the cubic inch was right, and I said, well, to start with, that's 366, then it went to 358. Oh. And I'm thinking, what crank is that in that thing?
Oh, man, yeah.
So anyway, I went to tear down, and it was okay. But whenever I seen he's mighty win that race, I had no clue, or no human possible way that he was going to win that race. Not the Daytona 500.
Yeah,
but
that's a great story.
one day that LG DeWitt and Benny Parsons was the happiest two people I've ever seen.
I'll bet so. And he got by with a good budget too on that.
No joke.
The cheapest engine ever winning the Daytona 500. But that just goes to show you how just you putting your hands on it makes it that much better. And so it did it. It made it happen.
But at home in Moody, had built engines for Lorenzen, and then I remember being at Daytona in 67, and Mario was down there, and he was in the company car too, and he's going to John Holman complaining about his engine. It wasn't running as good as Lorenzen was. So Holman, we was going back and forth. Then we down there for 2 or 3 weeks, and Holman had me build his engine, and Mario told me this 2 or 3, 4 years ago, whenever they inducted him in the Southern Motorsports Hall of Fame. And we got to sit together and talk probably 30 or 45 minutes. And he said, let me tell you what happened the rest of that. He said, I drove the tractor trailer down to Daytona, and we went and told Lorenzen his engine number, and you told me mine. And he said, I went to get it. And he said, boys didn't want to let me have it. Oh. He said, I thought I was going to have to wrestle him out of it. He said, no, I'm taking that engine. He said he got it, put it in the car, and he said the first lap on that racetrack, it picked up 400 RPMs. He said, I knew I had them covered then.
Oh, yeah. That's very cool.
And then the two of them ended up lapping the field that day.
Mm-hmm. Dang.
He says, what did you do with the headers to minimize reversion?
What did I do with what?
The headers to minimize reversion.
Well, the first thing, it started with the camshaft and then the carburetor. And the headers, I got found step down the headers, and that's ended up with that was the big game we had. I remember I done it on Kel Yarbrough's car for the first time. So, but it was quite a job to make it fit in the car, and after you got it all worked out. But I remember we won the Daytona 500 with the first setup. Kel, he was a different. He knew nothing about a race car. And of course, I knew he didn't, because whenever I was home with Moody, he wasn't interested in nothing but driving. He didn't care about building it or working on it or nothing. And I remember when we first went together, and he'd walk away from a race car, and on Saturday afternoon after practice, he said, he'd tell us, well, if you think anything, do it to it, just don't slow it down. And the next thing he'd tell me, if you don't want me to use it, don't give it to me.
There you go.
He was going to use it. He wouldn't pet it.
Did you ever look at him and say, can you be a little more specific?
One of the biggest mistakes I ever made was in '83 when he come to drive a race car. In '82 at Talladega, Benny Parsons and I was the first to break 200 mile an hour at Talladega. And I said, well, and it was ended up being a bigger deal than I thought it was. I remember being on pit road and we broke 200 mile an hour. I said, we're on the pole, and what's 200 mile an hour? It's just the number. But then I remember I went outside to pick up some tickets. The guys their wives was coming, and they just wanted some passes. And I walked in, and I'm telling you, they was hooping and hollering and said, you won't believe the people that's wanting tickets now, because that 200 mile an hour is a magic number.
How about
and that's the first time it hit me that it was that big a number.
Yeah. Was it?
So then the next year, Kel come to drive our car.
Yeah.
So I said, well, it'd be nice to break 200 mile an hour at Talladega or Daytona for the first time. Nobody had done that yet. Mm-hmm. So we're in the wind tunnel with the car, and we had the CD numbers on it and the flow numbers, and they wanted to know the horsepower I had, and I told them that. And they calculated and said, that car would run 203 mile an hour at Daytona. So anyway, when we get to Daytona, 45 mile an hour, 45 seconds is 200 mile an hour, and Kel's out there running 46s and 7, and I'd never worked with anybody like that. He was sandbagging, and I'd been used to Buddy Baker and Bobby Allison, all them, second lap, he knew exactly what you had. Mm-hmm. But not Kel. He was going to hide what he had. Oh. So we go out there to qualify, and I had the spoilers cut down to 20 degree. He pushed it on down some more, which, at that time with that notchback, it didn't have a lot of effect anyway. Mm-hmm. But anyway, the first lap, he went over 200 mile an hour. And the guy in the tower was telling me this after it's over, and he gave me the clip on it. And they were jumping up and down because it break 200 mile an hour. And down the back stretch, that guy said, you think that's something? He's on a clip now, 203 mile an hour. Mm. Then he goes into turn 3 and got away from him.
Oh, yeah, and that's when it went airborne.
Yeah. So anyway, I come back in the garage after going to the infield care center and checking on him, and he was okay. Mm-hmm. Only thing he told me, he said, well, you didn't put the controls in it so I could fly it.
Yes.
But Bill France Jr. came to me, and he said, if you'll fix that race car, you've got the 200 mile an hour, you will be on the pole, and you can work on it 24 hours a day, now till Thursday, to the 125s or 150s, whichever, and then run a couple out, pull it back in, and finish whatever you need to do. Mm-hmm. So Harry Rainier was the owner. He come to me and he said, well, my jet's sitting out there. And the guy from Calumet for him said, mine's sitting out here. Chevrolet had called, got in touch with me and said, well, anything you need from Chevrolet, we'll have it down there in the morning. But there was 3 guys that Cal wanted me to hire whenever he come with us. And they come to me and said, we ain't going to work on that race car. Happy hour's going to be in a couple hours. We're going to happy hour. So, it really bugged me that I let it go with that. Because I remember Leonard Wood come to me and he said, Waddell, you're not going to fix that race car? He said, let me tell you something. And it had never dawned on me. He said, you've been on the pole 4 years in a row, different drivers and different cars, and this would be your 5th year. He said, you're not going to fix it. He said, you'll always regret it. And boy, I have ever. And, and then the next thing is because Bill France, it would have helped him. It'd been the best thing we could have done to fix it. And it could have been fixed, I know, because everybody wanted to help.
Yeah.
But I just didn't take it serious enough, I guess. But it's still, I kicked myself. But the funniest thing that ever happened.
There might have been a reason for that.
Yeah. The funniest thing happened when there's Junior Johnson walked by, and a friend of his told me about it years later. He said, Junior looked at that thing and said, anything goes that fast ought to turn over.
Oh, see?
But Junior, he was something else.
Gosh.
But anyway,
I'm sure.
we took a backup car and still won the 500. And then the next year with Kel again, we won it in '84 too.
Yeah. How about her? I always liked Fred Lorenzen. I thought he looked like a really cool guy.
He was. And I remember whenever I went to work with him, and we were at Daytona in I forget what, it's 74 or 64. And that's when Chrysler came with that Hemi. And we was out there practicing run 160 some mile there. And Richard had that Plymouth covered up over in the corner. And he comes out the next morning and fires that thing up, and that was the first time I'd ever heard one of them Hemis run. And that was the keenest sounding engine I ever heard in my life. He went out there, and in the first lap, he ran 4 miles an hour faster than we did, just warming up.
Wow.
I remember Lorenzen took his uniform off and went to the motel.
Oh, really?
So I went, and he come by and he said, let's go have dinner.
Yeah.
I said, let's make this a test, because we was down there 3 or 4 weeks. I said, there's a lot of things I've heard these boys in engineering talk about you try for Daytona to do, and I said, none of them's ever had the opportunity to do it, but well, let's us do it. He said, okay. So I changed cam timings. I changed you won't believe all of that we went through. And he was right there in the middle helping me, because he worked on that race car just like anybody else did, and he kept his own records of, everything, the springs, the sway bars, everything's on that race car. He had it all wrote down.
Okay.
But anyway, we halfway through the race, we blew up because he put a camshaft in. We knew it wouldn't make it, and then put it in fireballs too. Both of them blew up about halfway through. Oh. But then we went to Atlanta and tested. We went to Bristol and tested, and then won the next 7 races that we entered.
Wow.
So much we had learned just down there testing.
Yeah.
But he had a feel that was unbelievable. He could tell you, what he needed, I learned that's the one that I learned so much from.
Sure, yeah. And how was Fireball Roberts?
Well, he'd come in of a morning, and he'd jump on the workbench and watch us. And he never he wouldn't say anything. He'd just watch us work. He wouldn't interfere with anything, but he never suggested anything or, hey, why don't you do this or do that? He was all the media wanted to talk to him anyway.
Yeah.
So next to getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, what would you say your second most proud moment was?
Well, probably the biggest moment was in 1980 when we won the Daytona 500 with Buddy Baker.
The Gray Ghost.
Yeah, the Gray Ghost. That always sticks in my mind. The thing about it, people don't realize at the end of the season in 79, leading into 80, there's only 3 of us in the shop. And anyway, I said to myself, well, I got a free hand now. I don't have to answer to nobody. about what I want to do to that race car. And I took it to a guy that used to work at home with Moody and had him work on it. And I'd go and check it lower at lunchtime. No, that's not what I'm looking for. And I said that long tempered, I want to fit like a glove, and this is what I want down the sides. And then like they never got that car the way I wanted it, but finally they got it, and I picked it up. In the meantime, I'm building engines, and the one in the run the Daytona Friday, I remember building it 3 times before I get it what I wanted. But anyway, 2 or 3 days later, I got a bill, and it was $10,000 for that race car. I said, "Lord have mercy, I can buy 4 race cars for that."
Wow.
And I'd still shouldn't have never paid it, but we paid it. But anyway, we get to Daytona, and it really messed me up that week because I'm thinking, how am I going to tell Harry Ranier that he owes $10,000 for that race car? He don't think I'm stupid and fire me. So the car was good. It was fast. It's what I expected. And I remember Sunday morning before the 500, Dick Beatty paged me to the office. So I go in, he runs everybody out with me, and he says, "Stand over there." He said, "I want to tell you something. Ain't nobody here wants to run against that race car today." I said, "Dick, there's nothing wrong with the race car." He said, "Yeah, we know. We've checked it from end to end, and they can tell every night they had the cover off of it." He said, "I always said I'll go to inspection and show you how legal it is." Well, I didn't want him to say that because that's one advantage that I had that nobody ever figured out.
Yeah.
Because it was a cow induction. So anyway, we ended up winning the race, and it was amazing that Buddy was able to run that thing the way he did all day. But come down to the last pit stop, and I told Buddy, I said, "Now, I need a can of gas, Buddy, and give me 6 seconds at least." And he come to me, and in about 3 seconds, he done dropped, we're revving the engine up, fixing to leave.
Oh.
Well, Buck began to the gas man, and he hooked up before actually the car stopped. And then he stayed with him and come into me, me trying to hold him. I reached in the side and grabbed him by his uniform to hold him, like I could hold him. Anyway, to let him know I was wanting him to stay there.
Yeah.
But anyway, he out of there he went. And Buck was able to do his job and get enough gas in it. So it come 2 laps to the end, and caution come out, but he didn't even slow down. He just kept going. But they finally got him there at the end. But anyway, we go in Victory Lane, and one of the NASCAR officials, I'm staying by Harry Ranier, the owner, and one of the officials walked over to Harry and says, "Well, today you just set an all-time record for 500 miles. And said, not only that, you've won $103,000. I said, "No, Harry, you've won 93 because you owe 10 for that race car."
Yes. I paid for it, though. That was good.
I'll never forget that. But that was one big day because that sure took a load off my shoulders when we won that race and won that money.
Yes.
And
Sure.
But that car was unreal. I know we went to Talladega with it. And the last pit stop, Earnhardt was running with us. And we come in, and the boys doing my tires, he kept saying, "You have to change 4. You can't change 2. Well, Earnhardt comes in and gets 2. We get 4, and we're 19 seconds back. And about 20 seconds to go, or 20 laps to go.
Yeah.
And he runs him down, 2 laps to go, and the crowd gets into it. I don't think they're pulling for us any more than it was for him, just wanted to see a race.
Yeah.
Well, we ended up winning the race.
Wow.
And we go in Victory Lane, or back in the garage after Victory Lane, and the inspector come over and said, "I'm going to find out how you're lowering this race car." Okay. And Earnhardt's car was sitting there. It's an Oldsmobile just like ours. I said, and I seen it, and I won't mention the inspector's name, but he's over in the garage at that time. He said, you're lowering this race car. You have to be if it's running that fast. And anyway, I looked at Earnhardt, and that right front tire had rubbed a big angle that, the fender in the hood. And ours hadn't even burnt the paint off of it. I said, well, the furthest seen cars, look at his and look at ours. He looked at them and shook his head and walked away and never said another word.
Yeah, because obviously his was close, or it was
his was lower than ours was.
Yeah, that's funny.
But that car was the Gray Ghost. It was it was something else.
That was a very nice looking car. Why was it that color? Just to.
You know, the big thing, the black was the blackest black I could come up with, and it was a Corvette silver, and then the striping on it had the yellow and the orange and the red striped down the side of it, but where it separated the colors. Yeah. Now that was a trick to get that worked out. But I remember those mobile companies, and they'd look at that and say, "Who on earth come up with this? This is the most beautiful thing that we've ever seen."
Yeah, that is. It's awesome. All right, and that was our good friend there, Waddell Wilson, the NASCAR Hall of Fame engine builder and crew chief, team owner for a little while. So, yeah, that was his story. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to do station ID and a couple commercials, and we'll be right back to Racing Roots with Hamm. Don't go anywhere.
Country 550 and 92.9 WAME and W225BD Statesville.
Hey, we found Ryan Scott over at the Chevy store. What's the latest and greatest from Randy Marion?
Billy Buck, the latest and greatest is we have a special purchase. Yes, the Randy Marion way of doing it. King of price, king of special purchase. How about a 2021 Chevrolet Equinox? These are LTs, all-wheel drives. Yes, all-wheel drives for $17,770. That's starting at $17,770. Huge selection at Randy Marion Chevrolet in Statesville. You pick the color. You take it home today. Chevrolet Equinox all-wheel drive LTs. Come see them today.
Southern Distilling Company is an artisan maker proudly reigniting the North Carolina whiskey tradition, operating one of the largest state-of-the-art distilleries in the Southeast. We're looking for you to
All right, we're back to Racing Roots with Hamm, and I was going to play one more little spot there, Bryson, and after you took your little break there, had your goldfish.
Yeah, I like goldfish. Those goldfish were good. I hadn't eaten supper, so I ate some goldfish.
I thought you was a little hangry this evening.
Yeah. I get hangry if I hadn't had nothing to eat. I get hangry, but I did eat a late lunch. So
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I had to get me some of those too, and some Oreos.
Yeah, man, I saw you digging in the Oreos. I was about to say, but I didn't want to rat you out like
So
you did
good.
me. But it's okay. Everybody probably saw me munching on my goldfish over here. But that's okay.
Probably so. Yes,
That's okay.
All right, so I'm going to play this other video right quick, and y'all enjoy this, and we'll be right back. It's only about 5 minutes long, and so we'll be right back. This one's when Donnie Allison joined us in the studio, and I put this little video together. It shows pretty good. 1979 Daytona 500, as you all remember that one. That's the infamous one. So here goes.
Out of turn two, Donnie Allison in first. Where will Cale make his move? He comes to the inside. Donnie Allison throws the block. Cale hits him. He slides. Donnie Allison slides. They hit again. They drive into the turn. They're hitting the wall. They're head on the wall. They slide down to the inside. Let's watch those third-place cars. They're out of it.
Well, what was that conversation between you and Cale right after the whole thing? Because I saw you kind of had him by the arm and you were talking to him.
Well, after the wreck, Cale and we had some pretty unpleasant words towards each other, but no fighting or nothing like that. And at the time, really, I didn't even think about fighting. I just lost the Daytona 500 the third time. I should have won it, maybe a fourth time. And, I'm sitting down there in the infield in a wrecked race car, and a little short, squatty guy that wrecked me standing right there beside me. But
who wrecked you?
You know who wrecked me. Anyway,
That guy.
so we had a few unpleasant words towards each other, and that was basically it. Well, Bobby shows up and stops, and he's about probably 30 feet away from us on the apron of the racetrack, and he hollers over at me, "Am I all right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "You want to ride back to the pit?" And I said, "No, I'm going to stay here with the car." And all this time, Cale's walking towards his car. I couldn't hear what Cale was saying to Bobby because, his back was to me. And the next thing you know, I see Cale hit Bobby to the winning net.
Yeah. Oh.
So I ran over there and I grabbed Cale by the left arm, and I spun him around. I said, "If you want to fight, you SOB, I'm the guy you need to be fighting with." Well, by that time, Bobby got out there fast, I don't know. But anyway, he got out, and then the fight broke out. And they got pictures of me with my helmet raised up. I never touched him.
Yeah.
God is my witness, not my mother, God.
Right.
And it's a good thing. Like I told my mother, if he ever hit me or I'd ever hit him that day, I probably would have killed him.
And there's a fight between Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison. The tempers overflowing. They're angry. They know they have lost. And what a bitter defeat.
A couple of very hard men, very hardly upset. And Bobby Allison is stopped by his brother to help.
I know you told me before that Bobby would start the fights and you would finish them or something like that.
Well, I was not proudly so, but I was in 7 of them at a racetrack.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother started 5 of them.
Yeah.
And I didn't lose any of them either.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You remember?
Yeah, that's funny right there. So if y'all want to see the rest of that video, you can actually go to my YouTube channel, DHammiam, and you can find that full video there. So that's great stories by Donnie Allison.
7 fights, and 5 of them were started by his brother. That's pretty crazy. So I guess 2, he was the culprit, I guess.
He was.
But that's pretty cool. I did not know that statistic.
I sat down with him over at Hut Strickland's whenever he had us over there, and Donnie was there, and Bobby were there as well. And oh gosh, listening to them too, and especially Donnie, he loves telling stories, and he just kept on telling them. And he had told me that was so funny.
Yeah, that is funny. Speaking of Bobby Allison, he was a grand marshal yesterday at the Daytona 500, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah. The cafe that he goes to every day isn't open on Mondays.
Really?
Corinne's down in Mooresville. Yeah. I thought about that whenever I rode by there. Dad's like,
oh yeah.
I was thinking he probably wouldn't be there today anyway, but they were closed,
Yeah.
After going to the racetrack. But I did have a question come in from one of our listeners, if I can find it back. Oh, T-Chaps88. He asked, Ham, when you worked at Sabco, how much compression were you guys running? Heard some of the teams in the late 90s pushing 18-1. Before the compression rule came along. Actually, there was a compression rule in the late 90s, and it was it was 12-1. We ran 14-1 until about 1997, I think, is whenever we went to 12-1, and it would actually run at like 11.88-1, just to be safe, because as your engine run, the carbon built up on top of the pistons, you didn't want to be over, and because you didn't want to, if you win the race and you were over in compression and you didn't win the race. So that was because they would do this thing called a whistle, which is basically taking how much air when they spin the engine over, or how much air that pushes into this. That's how you figure out compression.
Do you speak any English?
Right?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm sure with him asking such a specific question, he'll understand that. But me, I'm sitting over here thinking, okay, what are all these ratios that we're talking about? And this, No, but I understand it. You guys are smart. You engine people blow my mind.
Oh, I guess I just didn't think about maybe not knowing that.
No, I'm sitting over here. I'm like, okay, yeah, 14-1, 18-1 ratios.
Yes, it's basically it's all right. So basically, to put it in a simple matter, let's say you have this cup right here, okay, and let's say you're wanting to squeeze this cup, okay. All right, so compressed gas and air, when you compress it enough, like a diesel works like 22-1 compression.
Okay.
In other words, the piston comes up. This is a cylinder. And let's say there's a piston inside there, and it goes up the cup. I still don't know how I'm going to be able to relate that to a cup.
It's all you had right in front of you. It's okay.
Yeah.
You try.
So when you compress a fuel and air mixture, like let's say a piston's coming up in a cylinder and it's compressing, I was going to dump the water out, and it's coming up in the cylinder and it's compressing the fuel air mixture.
Yep.
It will ignite at a certain point on its own.
Okay.
Because the more you compress a fuel air mixture, the more you compress it, the hotter it gets.
So the ratios you're talking about is just a mixture of the fuel and the air, right, inside the cylinder?
No, it's that amount of space compared to the quench area.
I got
the
you.
Compressed area.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
see, now that makes a little bit more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that goes by volume.
Yeah. Okay.
So CCs, all that kind of stuff. But there's a formula that you would use to figure that out. Mm-hmm. But like a diesel engine, it compresses the air fuel. It doesn't have a spark plug, so it compresses it so much that the diesel actually ignites itself. Mm-hmm. And if you ever hear spark knocking, pre-ignition in a car, an engine, that's because it's getting to that. It's getting so hot that that fuel air mixture ignites too soon, so it makes that pinging noise inside the cylinder, and that can lead to a hole in the top of the piston.
The more you know.
Bad news.
Yeah, that would. I don't think that's a good thing.
No, it's
that
not.
would be very bad news.
Yes. So there you go.
Don't drive with a hole in your piston.
Oh no, not at all. All right. So I think that's about it for the show this evening, and I hope y'all enjoyed that. And we'll get some more stuff going on for next week. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, anytime.
To be determined.
Yeah, to be determined. So you can keep in touch with Racing Roots with Hamm. Go to our Facebook page, and you can see us there, and we will post whenever we're going to have a guest for the next week and whatever's going on in the racing world. And thank you, Bryson. Yeah,
thank you. I'm glad to get back in here and talk a little bit of racing finally. I mean, we talk racing every week. Gotta say finally, but talk about some racing that's happening with the Daytona 500. So,
did you have an announcement? Anything?
Well, I don't think I told anybody last week about the
no, you didn't.
The thing. Okay, so I found out last week that I'm going to be in the booth at Hickory Motor Speedway with Kel Lineberger starting in March. Well, I guess the first weekend in March coming up here. So that's it. I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. Just a Saturday night gig there and getting to stay at Hickory. I love Hickory so much. I think I learned. Going into Hickory and after being there for a whole season, everybody down there is kind of like family. And I've learned that with getting experience being in the racing, around people in racing, everybody's kind of one big family. So I'm excited to be around those guys again and to get to stay over there. And I'm looking forward to the opportunity. There's going to be a lot of good racing at Hickory this upcoming season. It was great last year, but so I can only imagine what's going to become of Hickory this season, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, good deal. I'm proud of you.
We'll have to thank you.
Yeah,
you'll have to come up and hang out with us.
Yeah,
in the booth, do a little Dr. Jerry Punch pit reporting or something. we could do something.
Oh, now that's an idea.
You get an engine builder in the booth. That would be cool.
Yeah,
that's work that out.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see if I can do that.
Yeah.
And, Dickie Dennis says, "Way to go, Bryson."
Thanks, buddy. I like Dickie. Dickie is awesome. Yeah, you're awesome, Dickie.
Jim Dooley says, "Bryson, sign up for engine school."
I need to. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank y'all. And Paul Rodriguez is Port St. Lucie, Florida. We were down there kind of close to him this past week, but they're going back and forth talking about the fence climbing and all that stuff still.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Well, y'all have a great week, and we'll see y'all probably next Monday evening on Racing Roots with Hamm. Good night.
When it comes time to repair or replace your electrical, heating, air conditioning, or other HVAC equipment, there's no better company to call than KM Electrical, Heating, and AC in Statesville. As an authorized Trane dealer, their professional staff members are all highly trained in the latest